How many?
30.
Already?
Okay.
That's good.
We ready?
Yep.
Good evening, everyone. We'd like to welcome you to the March 2nd Board of Ed meeting. Katine, roll call, please.
Dr. Cordolino?
Here.
Mr. Daughtry?
Keep going.
Here.
Mrs. Fano?
Here.
Dr. Modrak?
Here.
Mr. O'Brien?
Here.
Mr. Rappaport?
Here.
Ms. Zuckerman?
Here.
Mr. Palma?
Here.
Mr. Grau?
Here.
Mr. Joe?
Here.
Ms. Rossenow?
Here.
Pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Open public meeting notice, please, Katine.
The New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend any meetings of a public body at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provision of the Act, the Montville Township Board of Education provided a public notice of this meeting, which indicated the time, date, and location that was posted at the Montville Township Municipal Building, all Montville Public Schools, the Montville Public Library, the Montville Township Board of Education Administrative Office Building, the district website, and advertised in the Daily Record, the board's official newspaper, on January 9th, 2021.
Thank you, Katine. Good evening, Elliot, Natalie. Who would like to go first? Elliot, you're up. Good
All
choice.
right. I have the clubs and everything else, and Natalie has sports today. So for past news, Montville FBLA hosted its first annual Jeopardy tournament Wednesday, February 17th at 12 o'clock. The National Honor Society chapter's virtual induction ceremony was released on Monday, February 22nd at 6:30 via YouTube, and this was a pre-recorded video. On February 17th, MTHS hosted a virtual parent-teen safe driving course, Share the Keys, and this course was designed to educate teen parents about New Jersey driving laws. And on February 10th, seniors were encouraged to submit their senior quotes for the yearbook, and we hope to see many unique and inspiring quotes this year. And MTTV revealed plans to make a documentary about COVID-19, and they've asked for any photos or videos from the students to show what life is like during the pandemic. And there's a form on Schoology that students can access to submit these photos and videos if they are interested. And lastly, the MTHS Guidance Department has sent an email regarding AP exams and how all exams will be virtual except for a couple exams that must be taken in person. For example, AP language classes and AP music history. Music theory, sorry. And the email provides a schedule at what time and place these exams will be held, and all students who plan to take the exams must fill out a questionnaire form no later than Friday, March 5th. And in terms of the future, due to COVID and many people not being able to be in school, the Yearbook Club has reached out to clubs to take virtual photos and send it to them. And the best way to achieve this would be like through a virtual meet or some kind where all faces can be seen. And club officers are encouraged to look on the Schoology page to find where to submit these photos for this year's yearbook. Lastly, the class of 2021 seniors are encouraged to check on the grade 12 Schoology page and click on local scholarship classroom to see if there's any scholarships that they qualify or are interested in applying. And many of the scholarships have fast approaching deadlines, so keep out. The Montville Fire Department, Woodmont and Yana Schuster Johnson is due March 5th, while the Athletic Booster Scholarship is due March 15th, and this deadline was changed. So that's it for clubs.
Thank you, Elliot. Any questions for Elliot? All right, Natalie?
Hi, so I'll be reporting on some past and future athletics at MTHS. So the boys basketball team currently has a record of 7-1, including a win over Morristown, 66-51 on February 16th. The girls basketball team has a record of 9-4, including a win over Morris Catholic 72-47. And senior Bella Vito scored her 1,000th career point off an assist from her twin sister, Danny Vito, on the team's win over Chatham. She's just the 5th player in program history to achieve this milestone, so congratulations, Bella. The bowling team, the MTHS bowling team, earned a number 3 ranking in NJ.com's top 10, which was announced today, March 2nd. And they're currently undefeated with a record of 12-0. And this includes a win over Morris Tech when Evan Spitzberg made a 794 series to take the high series lead in the conference. Ice hockey currently has a record of 2-6-1, including their win over Roxbury 3-2. And senior goalie Adrian Prelich made his 1,000th career save. So congratulations to Adrian. The swimming team, congratulations to the girls swimming team on their win over Morris Hills on Friday, February 26th. There were first place finishes by Maya Ganguly and Annabelle Park. And on the boys team, first place finishes from Daniel Gologorski, Chris Coleridge, Hayden Abfire, and Steven Zampaglione. Yesterday, March 1st, volleyball and wrestling had their first practices. And this is the final grouping of the winter sports to start their practices. And they will begin competition on March 16th. And yesterday was also the first day for virtual contact with spring sports. So teams like girls lacrosse and baseball started this with team meetings and virtual contact. And boys tennis is scheduled to start practices on March 26th, with all of their spring sports starting on April 1st.
Thank you, Natalie.
You're welcome.
Any questions for Natalie? You said there were 5,000-point scores. Is that just girls or girls and boys? You know?
That's
No,
just a girl.
I think that was just girls. Yeah, so she's the 5th,
Oh, okay.
female in Montville
It's the
history.
5th one. Very
Yeah.
good.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
you're
I
welcome.
remember the county tournament. That was even though it wasn't her 1,000 point, that was a big tournament last year.
Yes,
I
it
know
was.
that was very, very exciting. Very exciting. Thank you very much, guys.
You're welcome.
And feel free to stay or feel free to leave. That's up to you. We had a presentation tonight's schedule, and we still may have it, of the 1920 audit report by our auditor. I don't think he's come on board yet, so why don't we just skip that for the time being, and we'll proceed. Maybe he'll come back. If not, we'll have to have our business administrator give the update. There's a lot of good news. I'd also like to mention that some of the schools, almost all of them, have continued to support the Montville Food Pantry. I know last week two schools came over, the high school and Mason, with donations, and very much appreciated, and we thank them for that. There's no violence and vandalism monthly report for this meeting. Renee, did you have any remarks you wanted to make at this point?
A couple. I don't know if Elliot and Natalie left, but I did want to comment on the National Honor Society induction ceremony. I thought it was, considering that it had to be virtual, I thought it was very nice. Natalie and Elliot are both members of the NHS, and one of the things that I really enjoyed about that ceremony was the virtual candle passing that went on amongst all the members as they were initiated. So whoever put that ceremony together, the virtual ceremony, it was very nicely done. We had a large group of inductees, and I congratulate all of them. It certainly is a pinnacle of their academic careers and their service to the school to be selected into the National Honor Society. So congratulations to all those students. I did want to follow up on several comments that were made at our last board meeting on February 16th, just because information was put out there through some comments that were made by parents that I just wanted to clarify and clear up some things. There was a parent that had provided a comparison to the Grandview Elementary School in North Caldwell. We did follow up with the school administrator there with regard to their school schedule, and did determine that between our elementary schools and theirs, there really is only a 20-minute net difference in the school day. And if the students in North Caldwell are actually going out twice a day to walk around the building, my guess is probably that's
probably the difference in terms of how the time is being spent. There was also an indication that our elementary students are not going out at all during the day, and we were able to verify with the elementary principals that, weather permitting, our students are going out during the day to get some fresh air for brief breaks. So that is happening. And the third comment was with regard to the science and social studies classes, that they were not being held at the elementary level. We did obtain information that while, you know, at some grade levels, there are actually specific classes and you can note them on a child's schedule. In many cases, a lot of that curriculum is actually infused into other lessons. It may happen at circle time or at other points during the school day. But we do have curricular pacing guides for those subjects, and the teachers are covering that subject matter. So, you know, I just wanted to provide that clarification, Mr. Grau. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Rotar, for following up on those items that were discussed. We have business administrators report. Anything at this time, Katina?
Yes.
Is this the tentative budget? Mrs. Slunt will be giving us an overview of the tentative budget, which will be approved tonight. And then the public hearing on this budget and the final budget will be approved at the April 27th meeting. This budget, after it's approved tonight, will go to the county superintendent for review. And once that's approved, then we'll be reviewing it again on the 27th, and that's when the final budget will be struck for the next school year. Go ahead, Mrs. Slunt.
So this is the preparation for the budget that will begin on July 1, 2021. It is very difficult to believe that when we sat here at this time last year preparing and presenting the 2021 school budget, the pandemic hadn't even started yet. And we look at how much the 2021 year has been a year of constantly adjusting as things change in our environment and we meet new challenges. As we look towards the 21 and 22 year, we also expect that we will be adjusting to changes. However, these adjustments relate more to us trying to go back to what will be our new normal. And that is a combination of the maintenance of the academic programs and the social programs that existed during the 1920 school year, the last one that we had that was normal, and then including the social distancing, the disinfecting, and all of the other safety precautions that we've taken into account during the 2021 year. So as we began to put the budget together for 21-22, we did maintain the costs and the programs that were in place prior. The entire budget is only increasing by 1.2%. And in the area of instruction, in addition to maintaining all of the academic programs, all of the co-curricular and athletic programs that we have always maintained and had been present prior to the pandemic, we will be adding a 5th grade teacher based on enrollment across the district. We will be adding a part-time Mandarin teacher and a teacher who will be teaching Spanish and French, sharing those between Lazar and the high school. The purpose of these teachers is to provide the opportunity for students who want to take advanced levels of these languages, that opportunity, and not requiring or not needing them to go elsewhere in order to pursue those very high advanced interests. We will be implementing a new math series throughout the district, which will be part of the online textbook series that we've been implementing over the last few years. In addition to the in-person learning that will be occurring in our classrooms, we will still be providing support, continuing and adding to the support for virtual learning. and we'll be maintaining after-school programs in order to assist students who are showing need based on the testing that we are currently doing. In the area of support services, our focus is going to be on maintaining programs that address social issues and stress management, particularly related to the impact that the pandemic has had on the students over the past year. As we've done in the past, we will still maintain all of our guidance services, media, nursing, and those services that are provided specifically to our students with special needs, such as the vocational program at the high school. In terms of operations, we will be expanding the lunch coverage programs in order so that social distancing can be maintained while the students are eating. So this is an example of us melding that normal, that what we used to call normal, with the things that we've been implementing this year in terms of social distancing. That will also include the maintenance of our custodial services. We had added additional custodians in order to wipe down touch points. That will continue. We will continue to do our disinfecting every evening, as we have been doing this entire year, in order to keep the buildings clean as we proceed through the effects of the pandemic in 2021-22. The final addition to this budget is the inclusion of capital improvements. In the 21-22 year, we will finish the final phase 4 of the referendum that was passed in 2017. And in addition to that, we will be concluding the solar installations on each of the buildings, with the exception of Hilldale. That was part of the ESIF program that was adopted in 2018. And we will now begin to continue to do other improvements using funds from our capital and maintenance reserve. Those projects include the replacement of the roof at Cedar Hill. That is being done so that we can complete the solar work. That's part of the ESIF. We will be doing some work at Lazar in terms of the entranceway for security reasons, as well as some new signage. And we will be working at some of the elementary schools as we do replacement of panels due to just their age. In the case of the sister schools, which is Woodmont, William Mason, and Cedar Hill, those schools are all now over 50 years old. And the panels that surround their gyms are beginning to show their signs of age and need additional upgrading in order to keep them going for now another 50 years. What we will be doing is we will be having a public hearing on the budget. That public hearing is scheduled for April 27th, in which we will go into the various areas in much more detail. The purpose of this particular presentation is to begin to present what our plans are from a financial point of view for the 21-22 year. And as President Brown mentioned, to have the board review and approve the tentative budget in order so that it may be submitted to the county office for its review and approval before the public hearing. That concludes.
Thank you, Mrs. Swint.
my report.
Any questions from the board members for Mrs. Swint at this time?
Yeah, I have one.
This happens to be an addendum on the agenda. I think it's
Mike Palmer has his hand up.
I have one. I'm just
Mr. Palmer.
confused, just a little confused. The work being done at the gym at the elementary schools, the sister schools, is that separate and apart from the referendum work?
Correct. That was never part of the referendum. The outside. It's the exterior.
Oh, the exterior, okay.
Okay. Anything else? Thank you again, Katine. We'd like to go into committee reports at this point. Finance and facilities, Karen? Karen? Are you
Yes,
muted?
Yeah, I just unmuted, Charlie. Thank you. So the Facilities and Finance Committee met actually this evening, just before the meeting, to just review some of the final elements that went into the tentative budget that Katine just presented to us. So tonight we will adopt the tentative budget, and as Ms. Slunt reminded us, on April 27th is the public hearing.
Thank you, Karen. Curriculum and instruction, Dave?
Yeah, so we had a meeting last week. It was a very nice meeting. We got to talk about an issue that Renee just addressed a moment ago, which was the issue of learning loss at the schools. We reviewed the data on that issue, and it does in fact appear that, again, the students haven't really lost, if you would call it that, the education. They haven't had as many experiences, and that is always a sad thing because a lot of those experiences are the fun things that you get to do in school. So the kids are missing out a little bit more on the fun, but they're not really getting behind where they should be for this academic year, and that's good. Basically what we discussed was that they're cutting out the fluff, again, the fun things. On the plus side, discipline issues have gone way down because the kids aren't in close proximity to each other. And also we discussed how the administration was going to be addressing, the assessments. At the beginning of next year, they're going to be, again, verifying that they haven't, that there are no real great deficiencies. They're going to be they do this every year at the beginning of the year to look to see how the kids are after a summer of no instruction and see how much of that knowledge has leaked out of their heads and onto the playgrounds. But we were quite confident at the end of the meeting that things are going just as well as they can go. And so again, kudos to the administration for keeping on top of this and being proactive about this issue. And that's about it.
Thank you, David. Policy and personnel, Christine?
Hi, Charlie. Yes, I do. I want to thank also Dr. Shorter for assisting me. So the Policy and Personnel Committee, we met on February 22nd. The committee reviewed a number of policy and regulation updates and discussed the abolishment of some outdated policies and regulations. A few policies and regulations of note that were reviewed and approved by the committee included staff family leave, earned sick leave, lead testing in schools, and board member resignations and removals. Additionally, there were a number of policies and regulations updated to move from the No Child Left Behind Act to the updated Every Student Succeeds Act, ESSA. All of the policies and regulations approved by the committee appear on tonight's Board of Ed agenda for first reading.
Thank you very much, Christine. That's your first report. Nice job.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks to Dr. Shorter.
Thank you, Dr. Shorter. Communications, Michelle?
No report this week.
Okay, safety and security, Mike?
No report this week.
Okay. Delegate report. Before I introduce Karen, I'd like everyone to know that she's being nominated for New Jersey School Board's legislative VP again. So congratulations, Karen. The vote, I think, is at the next General Assembly, and you have our total support. Now you have a chance to tell us about New Jersey School Boards.
Thank you, Charlie. It's been an honor to serve these past 2 years as VP of Legislation. So the Executive Committee met today a little earlier. And just a couple of things. We heard a report from Dr. Feinsod, who's the Executive Director. As you may be aware, the governor has okayed for teachers to begin receiving their vaccines on March 15th. So I think that's a bit of a relief. As you recall, at our last meeting, we did pass a resolution urging the governor to have the teachers be vaccinated as soon as possible. So maybe our resolution, along with others from many other school districts, had some impact. You're probably also aware that in the governor's address, he has allocated an additional $578 million towards formula aid, which is aid that goes towards the school funding formula, which hasn't been fully funded since 2008. So with this additional money, we certainly are moving towards a fully funded SFRA. For the 12th year in a row, New Jersey school boards will not be increasing dues for district members. And this is in part due to New Jersey school boards' ability to have their revenue begin to decrease as a result of dues and begin to increase with other revenue streams, such as the many programs and training and services that they provide. May 4th, there'll be a luncheon for the Board Member of the Year, which this year is Irene Lefebvre from our neighboring district of Booton. Two bills that have passed the Assembly and that are of interest to school boards. One is a cooperative purchasing requirement for the state to put together companies that will help school districts acquire items necessary for mitigation of the pandemic, the COVID virus. There's also passed the Assembly was a bill that will allow school districts to maintain a somewhat larger surplus of up to 4%, so that school districts have a little bit more availability of revenue as needed during this crisis. There's also regionalization legislation that you may have read about as being advocated for by Senate President Sweeney. New Jersey school boards made a big push to make sure that any regionalization happens on a voluntary basis, not mandatory. So that's included in the legislation. It will be voluntary. And that's about it. We obviously talked about many other things, but these things I thought would be of interest to the board.
Thank you, Karen. Any questions of Karen?
I have one. The increase in the surplus, is that effective this coming budget year?
Yes. This year and next year.
Okay.
All right, New Morris County School Boards, Mike O'Brien.
We meet on the 11th.
Okay, thank you, Mike. You're meeting on March 11th?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Educational Services Commission, Mike Rappaport.
Our next meeting is March 10th.
Busy week next week. The Drug Awareness, Mike Palmer.
No report.
Okay. The Athletic Boosters, Mr. O'Brien.
We meet tomorrow night at 7 o'clock.
Liaisons, anybody have any liaison report? We'll start. Karen, do you have it?
Cedar Hill meets on the 11th, on March 31st.
All right, and Hilldale will be meeting. Joe, Valley View.
They have their next meeting next Wednesday.
Christine Mason.
No report.
Mike Palmer, Woodmont.
Tomorrow night.
Pardon?
Tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night.
Oh, tomorrow night, okay. Lazar Middle School, we have either Dave Modrak or Mike Rappaport. You guys can duke it out. If anybody, no report, okay. High school, Michelle or Mike O'Brien? Michelle?
Yeah, they haven't met since the last time I reported, and their next public meeting is the beginning of May, but PTC just continues to work with the administration on however they can support, whatever year-end activities will occur in whatever form they will. So, they're working behind the scenes on everything that they can.
Thank you. Negotiations, MTEA, Karen?
So we met with the association last night, actually, and I thought we had a very productive meeting. There was good discussion on both sides. We meet again on March 22nd and then again on April 19th.
Thank you, Karen. The administrators and supervisors, and we haven't met person to person yet. Before we go into public participation, do we have our auditor?
Does not appear that we do.
Okay, so Katine, why don't you give the summary report for the auditor?
So the
this will be going back to item number 1, the first presentation of the 1920 audit report. Okay, go ahead, Katine.
So as part of statute, we are required to be audited by an independent auditor every year. This is the audit that ended for the year ending June 30th, 2020. Part of the delay that we've seen over the last few years has been the fact that we are required now to incorporate a lot more information about the pensions that are maintained by the state, and those numbers are then included in our report as our portion of it. So that delays our reporting, which is why this report is almost 9 months later than the end of the year. In terms of the fiscal position of the district, the board has received copies of this particular comprehensive annual financial report, and what those reports show is that the district is healthy. We did receive an unqualified opinion from the auditors, which based on their test work and review meant that our financial position and our management of the finances of the district are in good stead. In terms of those balances, we have monies that have been placed into our capital and maintenance reserves. We have monies that have been set aside as excess surplus to be applied to future budgets in order to relieve the tax impact. And then we have funds that are considered to be unrestricted and restricted for purposes of encumbrances. What the reports show is they show the steady movement of the capital projects being processed as that work is being completed, and that balance is moving down from the 17 million that it originally started. And with that is the slight rise in the debt service as we begin to now service the debt that's related to those bond issuances. This year, we did see an increase in the amount of special revenue, which is the revenue that comes in from federal grants, state grants, and local grants. And that's due to additional monies for IDEA and for the titled grants, as well as some additional funds from local corporations who have provided funding. The auditors do a review of our procedures and did find and make 2 recommendations, which I have enclosed the corrective action plan for those 2, which we will resolve, both of those related to issues in the construction areas. But as a whole, the report is a strong one and the district is in a good position financially.
Thank you very much, Katine. Since Mr. Hay is unable to make it, could we get a written evaluation, a written summary from him?
Sure.
So we can put it in the record? Okay, I know this happened a few years ago when he didn't show up. He was sick, and we did that at that time.
Yes, I will get
Okay.
that for.
So congratulations on an excellent report.
Yeah, I think
To
we,
you and your staff, I think you deserve a lot of thanks on behalf of the board and the other administrators. Any other questions of Katrine? All right, we approach that part of the meeting where we will entertain any questions that individuals may have on items on the agenda. So if you have, we will have a second session at the end of the meeting for any other items, as you know. So is there any questions for any agenda items?
so if you're watching on YouTube and you'd like to make a comment or ask a question, there are directions for you to come and join us in the Zoom webinar. If you are here in the webinar and you'd like to raise a question, if you could raise your hand, we will recognize you.
Does anyone have any questions on the agenda?
I see no hands raised.
I see no hands. All right, since there aren't any, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda
So
as
moved.
submitted along with the addendum, which is what, K6, Katrine?
The addendum is
K8.
K8.
K8, excuse me. So it's the agenda that we have plus the addendum K8. It was a motion by
So moved.
Mr. O'Brien?
who?
Mr. O'Brien?
O'Brien, seconded by,
Second.
I think it's
Michelle?
is that Michelle?
Yep.
You got it?
Yep.
Okay, any questions on I, the minutes? Jay? K? L? M? And I think N is the list of the policies that was given by Christine along for the first readings. The second reading will be on the next agenda. If there are no questions, Katrina, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. O'Brien?
Mr.
Aye.
O'Brien?
Aye.
Ms. Zuckerman?
Yes, abstain on I, the minutes.
Dr. Cordolino?
Yes.
Mr. Daughtry?
Yes.
Mrs. Fano?
Yes.
Dr. Modrak?
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien, sorry, Mr. Rappaport?
Yes.
Mr. Palma?
Yes.
Mr. Grouse?
Yes. Section Q is for old business. Any old business from the Board of Ed at this point? Okay, seeing none, we'll go on to Section R. General Board comments and new business?
Yes. Charlie?
I'm sorry?
Charlie? can
Yeah,
I-
I didn't hear.
David?
David, I'm sorry, go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, Renee, just a quick question. I received a note today from the principal at Lazar stating the new policies and procedures that are going to be going into effect as we combine cohorts there. It was nice that he's being active about this and letting everyone know and being very clear about things. But I had one question about that I thought you might be able to address, because I think it's probably a district-wide question. And that is that he stated that for kids that are going to be in person, they are not allowed to quarantine if they travel out of state or need to quarantine for some reason and not have that count as an absence in school. So in other words, students, the in-person students have to be there 5 days a week starting March 8th. If they, for some reason, have to quarantine, it appears that that counts as an absence. And my concern is that that's going to discourage people from quarantining when really they should be. Can you speak to that and maybe clarify it?
Yeah, I think, I'm just trying to get it up, David, so the exact wording, hold on just a second. I think if you read it carefully, you get a slightly different impression of it.
Well, it says quarantining because of travel is not an option. These students are considered.
Here's I need to get the specific wording, so please bear with me for a minute, David.
Okay, yeah. That was the specific wording.
While Renee is looking that up, are there any other questions? Any board members? Or general board comments?
I have a comment after Dave gets done.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I wish I had known you're going to ask that, Dave. I would have been prepared because the answer is very easy.
Who had a comment? Somebody else?
Oh, I do. I just
Who was
realized
I?
I should, Charlie, I'm sorry. I should have, it's me, Christine. I should have abstained on M. I think it's MI or ML.
She'll pick it up, Christine, and indicate it's a abstention.
I think
on
she
your
means
part.
M1. I think she means M14.
Thanks, Mike.
Is it time for general, is Renee?
All right, hold on just a second.
Just 1 second. Give Renee a chance.
All right, so.
Andrea, you're there. Can Andrea or Casey know anything about this?
No. There's specific wording that I want to refer to that addresses David's comment.
I just sent you an email with the statement.
Oh, okay. All right, because that's what I'm looking for, because I'll read it back to you. Okay. So in the communication, it talks about in-person students are not permitted to attend virtually unless under the direction of the Lazar Health Office or administration. So that means that, if you've been exposed and you need to quarantine because you're a close contact, the health office will be involved with you and the quarantine will be acknowledged and at the direction of the health office. So that's perfectly okay. Students who travel during spring break and need to quarantine as a result of that travel, that's okay. There needs to be communication with the health office so that they are aware that there was travel and the quarantine is as a result of that travel. What is not okay, which has been happening, is the a la carte, what I like to call the a la carte approach to in-person attendance, where it's too cold out today, so I'm not going to be in person today, I'm going to attend virtually. Or my child stayed up too late last night, he will not be in person today, he'll be attending virtually. We wouldn't allow that during pre-COVID circumstances, and that's not okay now either. If you are an in-person student, the expectation is that you're going to attend in-person student. If the child is sick, we don't expect that you're going to send a sick child into school. But there should be a communication with the health office to explain that there is a sickness involved, and that's why the student is not attending. But we've had a lot of people, deciding on their own when a child will be in person or virtual. And we've come to the point now that our classes are going to be a little bit fuller, that we need to have some structure to this. So that was largely the purpose of Mr. Pisciuto's correspondence. If people have, specific questions and want some clarification, I would suggest that they reach out to Mr. Pisciuto or someone else at Lazar.
Okay, thank you.
Mike, somebody else had their hand up?
Yeah, I would like to make a general board comment. I personally, I detect a note of optimism in our society by people of all ages, particularly myself of a certain age, in certain professions and so on. And I would like to say that in my over 50 years of association with the district, we have never had a situation comparable to the situation that we have gone through for the last year. And I would like to express my gratitude to Dr. Rovtar and the administrative team that works with her for getting us through a year of extenuating circumstances, like nothing we have ever had before. It is just leadership, that unparalleled leadership that has gotten us to where we are, that we can see maybe the light at the end of the tunnel, that we can plan for a future for the young people that we're responsible for. I want to thank you, and everyone on the team that works with you. It's a team effort. And I just want to express a year like we have never had before. I am really grateful for all the effort that went into it. Enough said.
Thank you very much for your comments. I think the whole board would agree with those comments. And I'd like to thank everybody involved, not just the administration. I'd like to thank all of the staff members. I'd like to thank the parents for working with us, because this has been a crazy 12 months. It was only 12 months ago yesterday, I guess, when the first case was discovered out in Seattle, I guess, Washington. But it's been a long 12 months, and I think all of us working together have made it possible. I know there's some bumps along the road, but as long as we keep them in mind that we're here for the kids, and I think that's the most important thing. But thank you for those comments, Michael. And Renee, I think Mike speaks for the whole board
Yes, and
when he says that.
I'm blessed to have a wonderful team, a very committed and dedicated team.
Thank you very much. Anything else?
Sure. Charlie, you know what? I'd like to make a motion that we as a board adopt the remarks just made by Mike in support of Renee and her team.
To do what?
Necessary.
No, I'd like to make a motion that we as a board vote to adopt the remarks that Mike made on behalf of the Renee and her team, because I think he speaks for all of us.
I second that motion. I second the motion.
I think, why don't we put it as a motion on the next agenda? Then we don't have to, so everyone will see it, that those that aren't here.
I think Katine can just reflect it in the minutes.
Huh?
Katine can just reflect it in the.
Okay, she can put it in the minutes. We'll go from there.
Yeah, she can.
Thank you. I think they know what we think of them, okay?
And we appreciate it.
Public participation, this is second public participation, which is, I mentioned before, anybody would like to speak. Dr. Rotar has given you instructions if you're on YouTube.
Please raise your hand.
Please raise your hand and identify, naturally give us your name, and tell us where you live, please. That would be appreciated. I cannot see the board, so Dr. Rotar will indicate whose hand is up.
I do not see any hands at this moment.
Do we have any hands up at this point?
Nope.
None?
Oh,
okay,
yes,
then.
we do.
We do have a hand?
Dr. Walsh?
Hi, how is everybody? I want to first echo Mr. O'Brien's praise of Dr. Rotar and you guys on the board.
Can you tell us who you are, please? Excuse me, can you tell us who you are?
Dr. Peter Walsh in Tawaka.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Walsh.
Again, I just want to echo Mr. O'Brien's praise of Dr. Rotar and the board. As parents, we really do appreciate you guys' efforts. I know it's tough. We're yelling at you. We're sending you emails. We're calling you. But, I think everybody's on the same page, on the same team to try to get everybody, back in a healthy way, in a safe way. I wanted to touch on one of the slides and also one of the things Mrs. Cordolino said, which kind of ties into my two questions. So Mrs. Cordolino said that we're getting additional funding this year. Did that mean this school year, or that mean the beginning of next school year? Clarification.
That's for the 21-22 school year that begins on July 1st and runs through June 30th of 2022.
Got it. Okay. The budget slide that talked about additional support for virtual learning, but in addition to the additional lunch coverage, kind of ties into my question, which was at the end of last meeting, the very last thing that was kind of said was kind of thrown in that, whatever plan we come up with, kind of depends on how bad the numbers are in September. And I kind of took umbrage to that because I think the expectation is that the plan we come up with for opening school 5 days a week and everybody in safely should be impervious to not only the numbers of how good or bad COVID is, but also what comes out of Trenton. From if they come, I keep on hearing that they keep on saying that we have to wait for Trenton to see if it's a virtual option mandate. But I think our plan should be worst case scenario and work backwards from there. A district-wide elementary school class would save on average, anywhere between 5 to 10, free up 5 to 10 employees each grade. If we did a virtual district-wide class compared to what we're doing now, which is 2 teachers per class. So I think there's different ways and different options to open things up. And I just want to see if you guys have talked about the virtual district-wide class and that's something we may be thinking about doing, or what the option is compared to this year. Because it feels like this year you're tying up a lot of employees in a good way, but also it's now kind of hamstringing us about our budget.
Well, Dr. Walsh, the comment that you referenced was made by a board member, was not made by the administration.
Yeah,
at the last.
Yeah, it was a board
So
member.
with regard to our planning, we are moving ahead, and as Mrs. Blunt showed, it's very interesting. We are trying to plan for all contingencies. So we are trying to plan, if we are required to provide some level of virtual instruction. We are also budgeting for, to expand in person to full day so that we can cover the lunch. As I mentioned at the last board meeting, we are desperate for direction from Trenton to let us know whether districts will be mandated to offer that virtual option, because they're, not only from a budgetary standpoint, but in terms of personnel appointments, staff assignments, there's a lot that goes into that. And I will tell you that we're planning for, both eventualities. We're hoping that as we get closer to the end of the school year, the direction will be clearer from Trenton in terms of what the expectations are for local school districts. At this point, we're trying to cover all of our bases. We just don't have any more specifics right at the moment.
Yep,
Maybe we'll have some more information by the time of the public hearing, which is April 27th. Hopefully we will, but as Dr. Rotar indicated, we're planning for both ways.
Yep, I appreciate that. I just, like I said, as the news comes out about, Kinnelon going back full 5 days in a couple weeks, and Sparta, Mount Olive, Succasunna, like the list keeps growing. And I know we have a budget issue this year. I'm just trying to figure out going forward, the plan, should be, like I said, should be impervious to the numbers and also mandates if we can kind of figure out the budget going forward. I appreciate it.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Infantino?
Hi, yes, everyone. Thank you for taking my question. I just wanted to follow up on a question that was asked on the last call regarding the travel guidelines. I know that the CDC has reduced what they require in terms of traveling for quarantining. And as of right now, our district remains at 14 days once you return from travel. And I know that that's difficult for a lot of families to have their children out from school for 3 full weeks in order to travel and give them a fun experience. So I was just wondering, based on the fact that some other districts have reduced their quarantine guidelines and some are now moving to recommending quarantining, if we are looking to do something like that in the near future.
We just touched base with the Montville Health Department about that issue again today. And we are operating under the New Jersey Department of Health guidelines, and they are still adhering to the 14-day quarantine period. That is the recommendation of not only the Montville Township Health Department, but also our school physician. So, you know, we've used those guidelines from the start, and, you know, we intend to follow through with that at this point.
So Mike, I guess my follow-up question to that being, you're saying that they're saying that that's recommended. Are they requiring that schools are all doing that? Because again, there are other districts that are not requiring that. So why, I guess.
I cannot speak to other districts. I can speak to Montville Township, and we work very closely with the Board of Health. That is the guidance that they are giving us.
So they're requiring us to have the 14-day quarantine, I guess is my question.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Kalemba?
Hello?
Hello, Donna Kalemba Tuaco. Can you hear me okay?
Okay. Yes, we can.
Okay. I just want to, I think we can all acknowledge that it has definitely been an unprecedented year with circumstances that nobody could have foreseen. But I was wondering, is there anything that the different boards of education around New Jersey, or we as parents, is there a specific like website or address that we, or phone number that you can provide to us to let the people who are governing, the governor in particular, know that since everything is kind of going on a good trajectory, that with all the vaccinations happening and the teachers getting the vaccinations, that we put pressure on them to make it mandatory that people go back to school 5 days a week. Because what has happened, I think, is that it's very easy for people to say, like you were saying before, that, you know, it's cold today, I'm not going to school. You know, I have a lacrosse tournament, I don't want to, you know, possibly get COVID, so I'm going to stay home. All these things that are really not the most important thing, but are easier for people to do, are taking effect of why the kids are not taking advantage of coming to school. And I thought, as either, you know, the Board of Ed or as parents, if we could put some type of pressure on the powers to be to make it mandatory that people come to school 5 days a week as it had been before COVID. Is there some kind of information you can give us as a community that we could kind of spread the word?
You can always contact the governor's office. You can, you know, Google his office, and there's actually a contact there where you can send him an email. I will tell you though that the issue with I don't want to speak for the governor, but I think it's very difficult at this point for him to mandate 5 days a week due to the obligation that districts have to provide social distancing. And most buildings cannot have their full enrollment present every day in every classroom because there's just not enough room to provide social distance. So if I had to guess, I would say that we are still a ways away from the governor mandating a 5 day a week schedule for all students.
However, you could write to the governor with your thoughts in an email. I know he takes them. And you and your neighbors can do that. That would be great.
Okay, the thing also that I think no one is saying is that the social distancing is for the spread of COVID, but what people are not saying, and which is really prevalent, I think, in our community, is the idea that this isolation has had lots of mental effects on our students. And nobody, you know, unfortunately, we all know we've had a suicide in our town. And I think there's a lot of other kids who are really struggling with the isolation and with depression. And I just wonder, when is that going to be the big talking point rather than social distancing? And I think it's a concern that we all really need to make out and clear.
I know that the governor is very well aware of the mental health issues that are affecting students. He does frequently mention that in his remarks, but I would, as Mr. Grau suggested, you're very passionate. I would suggest that you do reach out and send a communication to the governor's office.
That would be my suggestion, really.
Okay, maybe anybody who's listening to this meeting could do that. And maybe you as a board could also, or maybe your friends who are on other boards.
We work, as a superintendent, I work through my professional association, and we have routinely communicated, those types of issues to the New Jersey Department of Education and to the governor's office.
Okay, that's great.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your comments.
I don't see any other hands.
All right, since there are no other hands up at this time, I would like to thank everyone for coming. I would like to entertain a motion to adjourn at this point, please.
So moved.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Again, thank you all for coming. Be safe out there. Enjoy the warm day tomorrow. And we'll see you at our next board meeting, which is April
2 weeks from today.
16th.
March 16th.
16th?
March 16th.
March 16th, excuse me. I'm too far ahead of myself. March 16th. Thank you again, everyone.
St. Patrick's Day Eve.